I have found a easier way to set up replication server for database, especially SQL ones. On the server L2, let me show you, increase the font. On the server L2, I have started a MariaDB server over here, and I can see this server is already started over here, and I can set up this server to a remote replication server on another system so that all those data get synced and replicated to another database. That's how it makes a exact clone or exact copy of the same data, so that you don't have to worry about taking backup or even restoring those data. Later on, I will explain why replication is important, why even database, and what about various databases like SQL, NoSQL, and graph databases. So there are easy way available using CLI. But if it is on Docker or any other containerization like LXC or even jail, it becomes little trickier, especially configuring and opening those ports. So there is a handy little tool called phpMyadmin. Why it is PHP? Because it is written on PHP. Why it is MyAdmin? Because it was initially created to administrator MySQL. MySQL was a fork of SQL. That means Oracle SQL or other SQLs. It was first freedom-oriented database server, supported SQL queries. By the way, let me say this, like no SQL doesn't mean there is no SQL query you can make. I think it is much proper to say not only SQL. By the way, there are so many other databases are also available, like graph database. Nowadays, those are very popular in terms of AI and AI hype train. This is my remote SQL server that is having some data like SP Spider. It is having like 205,878. Like it is a lot of data. So it is better to have a replication server. And this is my local server. By the way, you can see those both are on localhost. See, this one is also localhost and this one is also localhost. But this phpMyadmin is a tool to browse database. The tool is on my localhost, but the database server is on remote server. As you see, this one is not having any data on it. And let me first exit and re-log in. So I will put localhost and password over here. Okay, I see it will not take localhost, as I will have to put my IP over there. This is the Dockerized MariaDB server. By the way, I do not use MySQL past 10 plus years because again MySQL was bought by Oracle. That was the reason why I don't use MySQL past few years. My first choice is MariaDB. See, this is the MariaDB. The server is on this IP and the server type is MariaDB. SSL is not being used to communicate from my system to the database server. And for this case, it is also the same. If I click over here, the server is L2 MariaDB. The version is same. It is a must to have the same database version, because if you are having multiple database version and older version eventually do not support newer functionalities, like newer MariaDB servers supports NoSQL data to be stored on the system. So it is better to have same database version. Protocol is 10 root and password. That means the user information and connection information is listed here. As you see, let me increase the font size. As you see, the user and hosts is mentioned over here, but in this case the host is 172.16.0.1, but it is within a Docker. That is the reason why it is not showing the real IP address. And sometimes it is better not to show those IP informations. Okay, now it is time I set up the replication. I want to make the remote server which is having those data to be on the master. That is the reason why I will set up this as a master. And this is the first time I am doing this. Based on my previous experience using CLI, I think it would be much easier to set up. Let's click on primary replication. Yes, I want to make this as a primary database server. See, I am having all those data over here, like a lot of data. So let me make it as a primary, and all those database can be replicated, including MySQL, phpMyadmin, spider. All those database can have replication. This was it. I think I need this database server ID. Okay, let me go over here, provide user, password, and host and port. By default, the port must be 3306, and I am using the default. I see my assumption was incorrect. Like, I thought it would be much easier to implement all those replication setup easily by using phpMyadmin, but just now I have realized, like, it is just providing the INI configuration. Like, you take those INI configuration and you just use your CLI to edit the configuration file, that is my.cnf, and update those value and restart database. That's it. That means still you will have to SSH into your server and do all those file manipulation by your own hand. There is no easy way. By the way, as I already said, I will discuss why replication is important and why it is much better to have a like backup. If I go to this server, and what if I want to take a backup of this server? By the way, I will do one backup and implement those backup restoration on my local host, so that you will understand how much time and effort it take to just get all those data. And what if you do it automatically by setting up some shell script or backup and restore cron job? But when you do each and every week, it becomes a heavy weightlifting, especially on weekend days. It gives a lot of pressure on your servers. That is the reason why replication is important, and I prefer doing it especially on my important data and heavy load database servers, so that those data transfer is smooth. Most of all, the main point is to have a replication. That is because we want each and every data to be replicated as soon as possible, as available those data are. And if the network bandwidth is enough, the data replication happens within a moment. So those are the important information to have. And why even database? Like, if I see those domains, this is only having like 4 columns. So I can easily write a JSON file and store those data. Even I am on a Btrfs file system, I can make various versions of those datas. But whenever it comes to fetch those data and do some query, then it becomes much harder to do some query on those files. That is the reason why initially around 1950s or 60s, the SQL was born. Later on, we understood like SQL was not enough. We need JSON based or object based databases. That was the reason why NoSQL like databases are born. Later on, we found like having object is not enough. So we need some kind of tokenization, and we need to find out a real meaning of those things. That's how graph database are born, and day by day I will explain all those in details tomorrow. Like tomorrow I'll provide all those information. For today I will just make a backup of those data and restore on my local host. Let me see how much the database is weight, like how much MB or GB is using. The command would be docker volume inspect maria spider format mount point. So this is the location. Let me increase the font size. This is the location. Let me grab the location div.h followed by, so it is around 1.2 gigabit in size, but I'm sure when it gets exported, especially it gets zipped or zzipped, the file size would be much smaller. For that reason, I'll do MySQL dump. Let me do MySQL dump. Before that, let me get into the Docker itself. Docker execit Maria followed by bash. I hope bash will work. Yes, bash is working. MariaDB dump would be the command. Let me see. Yes, the MariaDB dump command is working. So MariaDB dump. Let me exit from here. For that reason, the command would be docker exec MariaDB dump user password. I'll have to provide the password. It is very secretive password. All databases, list all databases. What if I, like, just now I realized that I can get all those datas within this system itself. Like over here, let me go to the downloads folder. Okay, let me go into the desktop Maria. I'm on MariaDB. Let me see if I have MariaDB dump. No, I don't have it. So first I will install MariaDB dump. Sudo pacman s MariaDB dump. That would be the command. MariaDB dump is not found. MySQL dump. What about MySQL dump? The command is MariaDB clients. CLINTS. Now it is getting installed. I'm not sure why they make different binary names. Whatever the case is, let me see if the MariaDB dump command is running. So the command would be MariaDB dump dash h equals to L2 and followed by user would be root followed by the password, and make sure to provide the password concatenated. That means do not provide the password after p with a space. Without the space it should be like this: password host user password and dash dash all databases should be the command. Dash dash all DATABASES all databases and followed by the, it's better I just provide those the database name itself. So here it is databases. The command would be databases followed by spider followed by spider dot sql. I think this is the correct command. Let me see. TLS SSL is required, but the server do not support it when trying to connect. Easy workaround. I'll have to provide skip SSL. That's it. Okay, I made another spelling mistake over here. Now the job has started. Let me see how it is going to take a quite a time. So it's better I put a btop command and let me see how fast it is going. It is like uploading 700 kbps but downloading only 12 kbps. It should be the way around. Anyhow, it is done. It is only 366 MB. Like it is already quite small. It was taking like 1.5 GB space on the database server itself, because on that database server the data, like in simple words, it gets scattered around so that the search and other query becomes much faster. But in here the data is fully compact. What if I make some zip sp.sql.zip of sp spider? Let me see how much compression it can do. 84%. See, it is only 60 MB. 84% compression ratio. Only it happens for text based data. If you are having like video image, zip is quite unuseful, but in this case it is very useful. I see it has compressed a lot. Okay, now it's time I import. So I will use MariaDB command. MariaDB dash h. I think localhost would work. Localhost dash u root dash p password followed by the SQL itself. Localhost is not getting connected. I think I'll have to provide the IP itself. This would be the IP. So again I'll have to provide the skip SSL command. Just skip SSL. Now it has started. Let me see if those data are available. Still those data are not available. I think the command is still going on. After the command is finished, I hope those data will be available on this system. Yes, the command has completed, but the data, what about data? Yes, the data is here. You see all those data is here. Yes, so that is for today. I have imported all those data over here. And why I have imported all those data over here, the reason was because I want to run a crawler that will collect all those domain information and save into that system. So it was previously getting to that server, remote server. Right now I want to run that spider application within my local system and want to try if the performance gets much better or not. Let me run that command. Go run dot. Yes, it has started and I see it is working quite fast. And the server, like you see now, the download speed is around 2 or 3 mbps. It is not much, but still quite a lot. And you see those domain data are getting updated. Not, it is not getting updated because it is still using the remote server. I will have to configure it using the .env file. Now it is getting shut down. Within a few moments it is trying to discover external links of YouTube. The crawler got stopped. .env, rather L2, you will have to provide the IP address. What would be the IP address? 192.168.99.180 would be the IP address. Now let's run again and see if the data gets updated. Yes, the data is getting updated as you see. Let me increase. What about domains? The domains are also getting updated. So it is working very fine. That is enough for today. Let's visit tomorrow.